The abandoned hospital. During my time as a security guard at St. Mary's Hospital, I encountered things that still haunt me to this day. The night shift was always eerie, with the quiet hum of machinery and the occasional distant echo of footsteps. But one particular night stands out in my memory as the most terrifying of all. It was around 3 a.m. when I received a call from the nurse's station, reporting strange noises coming from the abandoned wing of the hospital. Brushing it off as the wind or settling of the old building, I grabbed my flashlight and headed down the dimly lit corridor. As I walked, the air grew colder, and a feeling of unease settled over me. The lights flickered ominously overhead, casting long shadows that seemed to dance in the darkness. I quickened my pace, eager to investigate the source of the disturbance and put my mind at ease. But as I approached the abandoned wing, the atmosphere grew thicker, suffocating almost. It was as if the air itself was charged with an otherworldly energy, pulsing with a sinister presence that sent shivers down my spine. I hesitated for a moment, my hand hovering over the doorknob, before steeling myself and pushing it open. What I saw on the other side will stay with me forever. A figure, tall and shadowy, standing at the end of the hallway. My heart pounded in my chest as I called out, expecting a response from a colleague or perhaps a lost patient. But there was nothing, only silence, broken only by the sound of my own ragged breathing. I took a tentative step forward, my flashlight trembling in my grasp, illuminating the figure in stark relief. It seemed to waver in and out of existence, like a mirage in the desert, flickering in and out of the darkness. I called out again, my voice echoing off the walls, but still there was no response. And then, in the blink of an eye, the figure vanished, leaving behind nothing but an icy chill that hung in the air like a tangible presence. I stumbled backward, my heart racing as I fumbled for the light switch, desperate to escape the oppressive darkness that seemed to close in around me. And when the lights flickered to life, I found myself alone in the empty hallway, with nothing but the echo of my own footsteps to keep me company. But as I made my way back to the security office, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched, that unseen eyes followed my every move from the shadows. And even now, years later, I still find myself haunted by the memory of that night and the chilling encounter that lurked within the abandoned halls of St. Mary's Hospital.
Whispers in the Shadows. The haunting of Evergreen Manor. Deep within the heart of an ancient forest, where the trees stood tall and proud, their branches intertwining to form a dense canopy that blocked out the sun, lay Evergreen Manor. Once a grand testament to wealth and power, the mansion now stood as a crumbling relic of a forgotten era. Its once majestic facade obscured by layers of ivy and moss. The windows, long devoid of glass, stared out like empty eyes, while the walls, cracked and weathered, whispered secrets of a bygone age. Evergreen Manor had always been a place of mystery and intrigue, its halls echoing with the whispers of the past. Tales of ghostly apparitions and unexplained phenomena had plagued the mansion for generations, casting a shadow over its once glorious reputation. The story of Evergreen Manor began centuries ago, when it was built by the enigmatic Montgomery family. Led by the ambitious patriarch Tobias Montgomery, the family had amassed a fortune through questionable means, and Evergreen Manor served as a symbol of their wealth and power. But beneath the surface lay a darkness that would eventually consume them. Legend had it that Tobias Montgomery made a deal with the devil himself to secure his family's prosperity, sacrificing the souls of his loved ones in exchange for riches beyond imagination. As the years passed, whispers of dark rituals and forbidden magic permeated the halls of Evergreen Manor, driving its inhabitants to madness and despair. The first tragedy struck on a stormy night in the dead of winter. The Montgomerys' youngest daughter, Isabella, vanished without a trace, leaving behind only a trail of blood and a sense of unease that lingered in the air like a foul stench. Despite exhaustive searches, Isabella was never found, and her disappearance remained an unsolved mystery that haunted the family for years to come. As time went on, more misfortune befell the Montgomerys. Tobias's wife, Eleanor, succumbed to madness, her tormented cries echoing through the halls of Evergreen Manor long after her passing. Their eldest son, Alexander, met a grisly end in the depths of the forest, his mutilated body discovered by hunters months later. And still, Tobias remained undeterred, his lust for power driving him to greater depths of depravity. But it was the curse that ultimately sealed the fate of Evergreen Manor. On the night of the winter solstice, when the veil between the worlds was at its thinnest, the spirits of the Montgomery family rose from their graves, their anguished wails echoing through the mansion's halls. The very earth beneath Evergreen Manor seemed to tremble with the weight of their sorrow, as if the land itself mourned the tragedies that had befallen the cursed estate. From that night on, Evergreen Manor became a place of dread and despair, its once lavish rooms now inhabited by the restless souls of the Montgomery family. Travelers who dared to venture too close to the mansion spoke of eerie lights flickering in the windows and ghostly figures moving among the trees. Some claimed to have heard the distant sound of laughter echoing through the forest, while others swore they felt an icy chill run down their spine as they passed by the decaying estate. But despite its grim reputation, there were those who remained drawn to Evergreen Manor, unable to resist the allure of its dark secrets. Some sought to uncover the truth behind the curse that plagued the mansion, while others were simply drawn by curiosity or a desire for adventure. But none who entered Evergreen Manor ever returned, their fates forever entwined with the tragic legacy of the cursed estate. And so, as the years turned into centuries, Evergreen Manor remained a forbidden place, its secrets hidden within the shadows that clung to its crumbling walls. The forest reclaimed the land around it, swallowing the cursed mansion whole, until all that remained was a faint whisper on the wind, a reminder of the darkness that lurked within the heart of Evergreen Manor. The arrival at Greywood Manor. In the heart of the English countryside, nestled amid dense woods and rolling hills, stood Greywood Manor. This sprawling estate, once the epitome of grandeur, had now fallen into disrepair, its stone walls covered in moss and ivy. Despite its dilapidated state, the manor retained a haunting beauty, a relic of a bygone era when it was the pride of the Greywood family. Local legends spoke of strange occurrences and whispered secrets, fueling the curiosity of those who dared to venture near. Dr. Emily Hart, a historian with a fascination for old estates and their hidden histories, had always been drawn to such places. When she received a letter from an unknown benefactor inviting her to Greywood Manor to document its history, she couldn't resist. The letter, written in elegant script, read, "Dr. Emily Hart, your reputation as a historian precedes you. Greywood Manor, with its rich yet troubled history, requires your expertise. We invite you to spend a month at the manor, exploring its secrets and uncovering the truth behind the legends. All arrangements have been made for your stay. Sincerely, a friend of Greywood. The mysterious nature of the invitation only heightened Emily's interest. She packed her bags, filled with notebooks, cameras, and other research tools, and set off for the manor. As she drove through the countryside, the scenery grew increasingly wild and untamed, the trees casting long, eerie shadows across the road. Upon arrival, Emily was struck by the imposing sight of Greywood Manor. The grand entrance, flanked by weathered stone pillars, opened onto a gravel driveway leading up to the main building. The manor's tall, arched windows were dark and foreboding, giving the impression of a slumbering giant. Emily was greeted by the caretaker, an elderly man named Mr. Thompson. His weathered face and piercing blue eyes seemed to hold many untold stories. He welcomed her with a courteous nod and led her through the creaking wooden doors into the grand foyer. The interior, though dusty and dimly lit, retained an air of faded elegance, with ornate moldings and antique furniture hinting at its former glory. "Welcome to Greywood Manor, Dr. Hart," Mr. Thompson said, his voice gravelly. "I hope you find your stay enlightening." Emily nodded, her curiosity piqued. "Thank you, Mr. Thompson. I'm eager to begin my research." Mr. Thompson led her to her quarters, a spacious room with a large canopy bed and a writing desk by the window. The view overlooked the overgrown gardens, their once meticulous design now lost to the wild. Emily unpacked her belongings, her excitement growing with each passing moment. As evening fell, she made her way to the library, a vast room lined with shelves filled with dusty books. A fire crackled in the hearth, casting flickering shadows on the walls. Emily selected a few volumes and settled into a comfortable armchair, immersing herself in the history of the Greywood family. The manor's history was a tapestry of triumph and tragedy. The Greywoods had been a prominent family, their wealth and influence stretching back centuries. However, their fortunes had waned in recent generations, plagued by mysterious deaths and financial ruin. Whispers of curses and supernatural forces had surrounded the family, adding an aura of mystery to their downfall. As she delved deeper into the records, Emily discovered references to a hidden room within the manor, said to contain the family's darkest secrets. Intrigued, she made a note to investigate further. The night grew late, and fatigue began to creep in. She decided to retire to her room, eager to continue her research the next day. That night, Emily's sleep was restless, filled with strange dreams. She found herself wandering the dimly lit halls of Greywood Manor, the shadows shifting and whispering around her. She felt an inexplicable sense of foreboding, as if unseen eyes were watching her every move. She awoke with a start, her heart pounding, the sense of unease lingering in the darkness. Determined not to let her dreams deter her, Emily rose early the next morning and resumed her research. She began by exploring the manor, taking photographs and making detailed notes of the architecture and artifacts she found. Each room seemed to hold a piece of the puzzle, the layers of history intertwined with the supernatural. As she wandered through the dusty corridors, she came across a portrait gallery. The paintings depicted generations of the Greywood family, their stern faces staring out from gilded frames. One portrait, in particular, caught her attention. It was of a young woman, her dark eyes filled with a haunting sadness. The plaque beneath read, "Eleanor Greywood, 1892 to 1910. Emily felt a strange connection to Eleanor, as if the young woman was trying to communicate with her. She made a note to research Eleanor's story, hoping to uncover the reason for her sorrowful expression. As she turned to leave the gallery, she noticed a small, faded photograph tucked into the frame of Eleanor's portrait. It showed Eleanor standing beside a man, both smiling warmly at the camera. On the back, in elegant script, were the words, "Eleanor and Samuel, Summer, 1909. Intrigued, Emily slipped the photograph into her notebook and continued her exploration. She spent the next few days combing through the manor's archives, piecing together the history of Eleanor and Samuel. It became clear that their story was one of love and tragedy. Samuel, a local artist, had been deeply in love with Eleanor, and their engagement had been the talk of the town. However, their happiness was short-lived. Samuel had disappeared under mysterious circumstances just before their wedding, and Eleanor had died a few months later, her cause of death never fully explained. As Emily delved deeper into the mystery, she began to experience strange occurrences. She would hear faint whispers in the empty halls, and doors would creak open or shut on their own. One night, as she worked late in the library, she felt a cold breeze brush past her, though the windows were firmly closed. Determined to find the truth, she pressed on, undeterred by the unsettling events. Her research led her to the hidden room mentioned in the old records. She discovered a faded map of the manor, which indicated the room's location behind a false wall in the cellar. Armed with a flashlight and a sense of determination, she made her way down to the dark, musty cellar. The air was thick with dust, and the only sound was the distant drip of water. She found the false wall, a section of brickwork that didn't quite match the rest. With some effort, she managed to pry loose a few bricks, revealing a narrow passageway. Heart pounding, she squeezed through the opening and into the hidden room. The room was small and dimly lit, its walls lined with shelves filled with old books and artifacts. In the center stood a wooden table, upon which lay a collection of letters and a large, leather-bound journal. Emily carefully opened the journal, its pages filled with elegant script. It was Eleanor's diary. As she read, the tragic story of Eleanor and Samuel unfolded before her. Samuel had discovered a dark secret about the Greywood family, something that had put his life in danger. He had been trying to protect Eleanor from the same fate when he disappeared. Eleanor, heartbroken and desperate for answers, had continued his investigation, documenting her findings in the diary. She had uncovered evidence of the family's involvement in occult practices and their attempts to harness dark forces for power and wealth. Eleanor's final entries were filled with fear and despair. She had come to believe that the family curse was real, and that it was only a matter of time before it claimed her as well. Her last entry was a plea for help, a desperate cry for someone to uncover the truth and put an end to the darkness that had plagued her family for generations. Emily felt a deep sense of sorrow and resolve. She knew that she had to honor Eleanor's memory by continuing her work and uncovering the truth. As she carefully replaced the diary, she noticed a small ornate box tucked away on a shelf. Inside, she found a delicate silver locket. Opening it, she saw a tiny photograph of Eleanor and Samuel, their faces filled with happiness and love. Taking the locket as a token of her connection to Eleanor, Emily left the hidden room and returned to her quarters. That night, she dreamt of Eleanor, her spirit finally at peace, her sad eyes now filled with gratitude. Emily knew that she was on the right path, and she vowed to see it through to the end. Over the next few days, Emily's research intensified. She uncovered more evidence of the Greywood family's dark past, including letters and documents detailing their involvement in occult rituals and their attempts to summon and control malevolent entities. The more she learned, the more she realized the extent of the curse that had befallen the family. One evening, as she worked late in the library, she heard a faint melodic humming. Following the sound, she found herself in the portrait gallery once more. The humming grew louder as she approached Eleanor's portrait. To her astonishment, she saw Eleanor's image in the painting move, her lips parting in a silent plea. "Eleanor?" Emily whispered, her heart racing. The humming stopped, and the room fell silent. Emily felt a cold breeze brush past her, and she knew that Eleanor's spirit was still trying to communicate with her. Determined to uncover the truth, she returned to her research with renewed vigor. Her investigation led her to the nearby village, where she spoke with the older residents who remembered the stories of the Greywood family. One elderly woman, Mrs. Abernathy, shared a particularly chilling tale. She spoke of a night many years ago when strange lights had been seen emanating from the manor, and eerie chanting had echoed through the woods. The next morning, Samuel had disappeared, and Eleanor had been found in a state of hysteria. She kept saying that the darkness had taken him, Mrs. Abernathy recalled, her voice trembling. She believed that the family had called upon something evil, and it had claimed Samuel as its price. Emily thanked Mrs. Abernathy for her help and returned to the manor, her mind racing with the implications of what she had learned. She knew that she was close to uncovering the truth, but she also knew that she was facing forces far beyond her understanding. That night, as she sat in the library, she felt a sudden chill. The fire in the hearth flickered, and then went out, plunging the room into darkness. Emily heard the faint sound of footsteps approaching, and she felt a cold hand on her shoulder. Turning, she found herself face to face with a shadowy figure. Its eyes glowed with an eerie light, and its voice was a cold whisper. "You should not have come here, Emily Hart," the figure said. "The secrets of Greywood Manor are not meant for the living." Emily's heart pounded, but she refused to be intimidated. "I will not leave until I uncover the truth," she said, her voice steady. "I will honor Eleanor's memory and put an end to the curse." The figure laughed, a chilling sound that echoed through the room. "You cannot stop what has been set in motion. The darkness will consume you, just as it has consumed all who came before you." With those words, the figure vanished, leaving Emily alone in the darkness. She knew that she was in grave danger, but she also knew that she could not turn back. The fate of Greywood Manor and the souls trapped within depended on her. Gathering her courage, Emily continued her research, determined to find a way to break the curse. She discovered a ritual described in Eleanor's diary, a way to banish the dark forces that had taken root in the manor. The ritual required several rare ingredients, including a piece of obsidian, a vial of holy water, and a sprig of hemlock. Emily set out to gather the necessary items, enlisting the help of Mr. Thompson, who had grown increasingly concerned for her safety. Together, they scoured the countryside, visiting old apothecaries and ancient churches, collecting the items needed for the ritual. As they gathered the final ingredient, Emily felt a sense of foreboding. She knew that the ritual would be dangerous, and that the dark forces within the manor would not give up their hold without a fight. But she also knew that she had come too far to turn back now. Returning to Greywood Manor, Emily and Mr. Thompson prepared for the ritual. They set up a circle of protection in the grand hall, placing the ingredients at strategic points around the room. Emily stood in the center, the Codex Umbra in her hands, ready to recite the incantation. As she began to chant, the air around them grew thick with energy. The shadows in the room seemed to come alive, twisting and writhing as if trying to break free. Emily felt a powerful force pushing against her, trying to silence her voice and disrupt the ritual. Mr. Thompson stood at her side, offering his support. "Stay strong, Dr. Hart," he said, his voice steady. "You can do this." Drawing strength from his words, Emily continued the incantation, her voice growing louder and more confident. The shadows recoiled, and the room filled with a blinding light. The ground beneath their feet trembled, and the air crackled with energy. As the ritual reached its climax, Emily felt a surge of power course through her. The dark forces that had plagued Greywood Manor for centuries were being driven back, their hold on the estate weakening. The shadows dissipated, and the room was filled with a sense of peace and tranquility. When the light finally faded, Emily and Mr. Thompson found themselves standing in the grand hall, the air clear and still. The curse had been broken, and the dark forces that had haunted the manor were gone. Exhausted but triumphant, Emily collapsed into a nearby chair, her heart filled with a sense of accomplishment. She had done it. She had honored Eleanor's memory and freed Greywood Manor from its dark past. Over the following days, Emily and Mr. Thompson worked to restore the manor, repairing the damage and bringing light to the once shadowed halls. The portraits in the gallery seemed to take on a new life, their faces no longer filled with sorrow and despair. As she prepared to leave Greywood Manor, Emily felt a deep sense of gratitude and fulfillment. She knew that her work was far from over, that there were still many mysteries to uncover and stories to tell. But she also knew that she had made a difference, that she had brought light to a place that had long been shrouded in darkness. As she drove away from the manor, the sun setting behind her, Emily felt a sense of peace and resolve. She would continue her journey, exploring the hidden histories and forgotten secrets of the world, bringing light to the darkest corners of history. For Emily Hart, the adventure had just begun, and she knew that, no matter what challenges lay ahead, she would face them with courage and determination. She was a seeker of truth, a guardian of the past, and a champion of the light, and nothing could stand in her way. Part 2, Unveiling the Darkness. Despite the triumph that Emily Hart felt after breaking the curse of Greywood Manor, she knew that the full truth about the manor and its dark history had not yet been completely unearthed. There were still many questions left unanswered, and many mysteries yet to be solved. The death of Eleanor Greywood, the disappearance of Samuel, and the malevolent forces that had plagued the manor were pieces of a puzzle that demanded further investigation. After spending a few more days cataloging her findings and documenting the rituals and their effects, Emily realized she needed to dig deeper into the history of the Greywood family. The clues she had uncovered hinted at connections to other dark events in the area, and perhaps even beyond. There was a feeling that the curse was only a symptom of a much larger, more sinister presence. Emily contacted her colleagues at the university and requested access to their archives. She knew that to uncover the entire story, she would need to dive into records that went beyond the walls of Greywood Manor. As she awaited their response, she continued to explore the manor, carefully piecing together the life stories of its former residents. The first revelation came from an unexpected source, an old, crumbling diary she found hidden behind a false panel in Eleanor's room. The diary belonged to Lady Beatrice Greywood, a matriarch of the family who lived during the early 18th century. Lady Beatrice wrote of a dark pact made by her ancestors with a shadowy figure known only as the Dark One. This pact promised the Greywood family immense power and wealth in exchange for periodic sacrifices. The sacrifices, Lady Beatrice wrote with evident horror, were often family members or close friends who had to be offered to the Dark One to maintain the pact. Those who resisted or tried to break the pact faced dire consequences, often disappearing under mysterious circumstances or meeting untimely deaths. The diary detailed how Lady Beatrice herself had tried to end the curse, only to fail and meet her own tragic end. With this chilling revelation, Emily realized that the curse of Greywood Manor was not merely the result of occult practices, but a binding agreement that had spanned generations. She now had a new lead, the identity and origins of the Dark One. Her next step was to find out more about this entity and how it could be defeated. Emily's request for archival access was granted, and she spent several days poring over old records, manuscripts, and historical documents. She discovered that the Dark One had been mentioned in various local legends and folklore, often depicted as a malevolent spirit or demon that preyed on the greed and ambition of powerful families. Each reference hinted at similar dark pacts and the catastrophic consequences for those who tried to break them. Through her research, Emily identified several other families who had made similar pacts, all of whom had suffered tragedies and mysterious deaths over the centuries. She compiled a list of these families and their estates, hoping that by visiting them, she might uncover more clues about the Dark One and how to defeat it. Her first visit was to Ravenwood House, a sprawling estate with a history eerily similar to Greywood Manor. The current owner, a reclusive scholar named Dr. James Everett, welcomed Emily with cautious curiosity. Dr. Everett had spent years trying to uncover the secrets of his family's dark past and was eager to share his findings. "Greywood Manor, you say?" Dr. Everett mused as he led Emily to his study. "I've heard of the place. The stories are quite chilling. My own family has not been spared from similar horrors." Dr. Everett's study was a treasure trove of old books, manuscripts, and artifacts. He showed Emily a series of journals kept by his ancestors, detailing their own pact with the Dark One. Like the Greywoods, the Everetts had enjoyed great wealth and power, but at a terrible cost. The journals described dark rituals, sacrifices, and the ever-present fear of retribution from the Dark One. One journal entry caught Emily's attention. It spoke of a secret society known as the Order of the Obsidian Flame, which had been formed by descendants of families bound by pacts with the Dark One. The Order's purpose was to find a way to break the pacts and free their families from the curse. "The Order of the Obsidian Flame," Emily repeated, feeling a surge of hope. "Do you know if they succeeded?" Dr. Everett shook his head. "There are no records of the Order's success or failure. They seem to have vanished without a trace. But I believe they might have found something important. A clue, perhaps, or a way to summon the Dark One and banish it." With this new lead, Emily decided to track down the remnants of the Order of the Obsidian Flame. Her search took her to the remote corners of the country, visiting ancient libraries, abandoned estates, and forgotten archives. Each step brought her closer to understanding the true nature of the Dark One and the rituals needed to defeat it. One of her most significant discoveries came from an old monastery in the Scottish Highlands. The monks there had preserved a collection of ancient texts that described various encounters with the Dark One. Among these texts was a manuscript written by a member of the Order of the Obsidian Flame, detailing a ritual to summon and banish the Dark One. The ritual was complex and dangerous, requiring rare ingredients and a precise incantation. Emily carefully transcribed the instructions, knowing that this might be her only chance to put an end to the curse that had plagued not only the Greywoods, but many other families as well. Returning to Greywood Manor, Emily prepared for the final confrontation. She gathered the necessary ingredients, which included sacred herbs, a silver dagger, and a ceremonial chalice. She also enlisted the help of Mr. Thompson, whose knowledge of the manor and unwavering support had been invaluable throughout her journey. As they prepared the ritual in the Grand Hall, Emily felt a growing sense of dread. The manor seemed to come alive with dark energy, the shadows deepening, and the air growing thick and oppressive. She knew that the Dark One would not relinquish its hold without a fight. The night of the ritual was stormy, with thunder rumbling in the distance and lightning illuminating the darkened sky. Emily and Mr. Thompson stood in the center of the grand hall, the ingredients laid out before them. Emily took a deep breath and began to recite the incantation, her voice steady, despite the fear that gnawed at her. As she chanted, the air around them crackled with energy. The shadows in the room twisted and writhed, and a cold wind swept through the hall. Emily felt a powerful presence watching them, a malevolent force that seemed to seep into her very soul. The ritual reached its climax, and Emily raised the silver dagger, ready to make the final cut that would summon the Dark One. As she did, the room was filled with a blinding light, and a deafening roar echoed through the manor. The ground beneath their feet trembled, and Emily felt a surge of power course through her. Suddenly, the light faded, and the room was plunged into darkness. Emily felt a cold hand grip her shoulder, and she turned to see a shadowy figure standing before her. Its eyes glowed with an eerie light, and its voice was a cold, mocking whisper. "You dare to summon me, Emily Hart?" the Dark One said. "You cannot hope to defeat me. The pacts are eternal, and the darkness will consume you." Emily's heart pounded, but she refused to be intimidated. "I will not let you continue this reign of terror," she said, her voice steady. "I will break the pacts and free the souls you have claimed." The Dark One laughed, a chilling sound that echoed through the hall. "You are a fool, Emily Hart. The power of the pacts is beyond your comprehension. You will fail, just as all who came before you." With those words, the Dark One lunged at Emily, its shadowy form enveloping her. Emily felt a surge of fear, but she held firm, focusing on the incantation. She raised the silver dagger and made the final cut, releasing a burst of energy that filled the room. The Dark One recoiled, its form flickering and weakening. Emily continued the incantation, her voice growing louder and more confident. The shadows in the room began to dissipate, and the oppressive darkness lifted. As the ritual reached its conclusion, the Dark One let out a final anguished roar and vanished, leaving behind a sense of peace and tranquility. The air in the grand hall cleared, and the shadows were replaced by a warm, golden light. Exhausted but triumphant, Emily collapsed into a nearby chair, her heart filled with a sense of accomplishment. She had done it. She had broken the pacts and banished the Dark One, freeing the souls that had been trapped for centuries. Mr. Thompson rushed to her side, his eyes filled with gratitude. "You did it, Dr. Hart. You truly did it." Emily nodded, her exhaustion giving way to relief. "It's over. The curse is finally broken." Over the following days, Emily and Mr. Thompson worked to restore Greywood Manor, bringing light to the once shadowed halls and ensuring that the dark history of the estate would never be forgotten. They documented their findings, creating a comprehensive record of the events and the rituals that had been used to banish the Dark One. As Emily prepared to leave Greywood Manor, she felt a deep sense of fulfillment and resolve. She knew that her work was far from over, that there were still many mysteries to uncover and stories to tell. But she also knew that she had made a difference, that she had brought light to a place that had long been shrouded in darkness. As she drove away from the manor, the sun setting behind her, Emily felt a sense of peace and determination. She would continue her journey, exploring the hidden histories and forgotten secrets of the world, bringing light to the darkest corners of history. For Emily Hart, the adventure had just begun, and she knew that, no matter what challenges lay ahead, she would face them with courage and determination. She was a seeker of truth, a guardian of the past, and a champion of the light. and nothing could stand in her way. Hash, hash, hash. Part 3. Echoes of the Past. As Emily Hart departed from Greywood Manor, she carried with her not only the satisfaction of a great victory, but also an insatiable curiosity for the unknown. The experience had changed her, deepening her commitment to uncovering the hidden truths and forgotten secrets that lay buried in the shadows of history. The next phase of her journey began with a cryptic letter she received just a few weeks after leaving the manor. The letter, written in elegant, old-fashioned script, contained only a few lines. Dear Dr. Hart, your efforts have not gone unnoticed. There are others who share your passion for the truth. If you seek to continue your work, come to the Blackwood Library in London. You will find what you seek. Sincerely, a friend. Intrigued, Emily wasted no time in making her way to London. The Blackwood Library, she discovered, was an ancient, sprawling building tucked away in a quiet corner of the city. Its facade was weathered and covered in ivy, giving it an air of mystery and timelessness. Inside, the library was a labyrinth of towering bookshelves, dimly lit alcoves, and hidden chambers. Emily felt a thrill of anticipation as she navigated the maze-like corridors, her footsteps echoing softly on the polished wooden floors. In a secluded reading room, she met the man who had sent the letter. He introduced himself as Professor Gabriel Hawthorne, a distinguished scholar with a keen interest in the occult and the supernatural. Hawthorne was a member of a clandestine society known as the Enlightened, dedicated to investigating and combating dark forces like the Dark One. Dr. Hart, Professor Hawthorne said, his voice warm and welcoming, your work at Greywood Manor has impressed many of us. The Enlightened believe that you have a unique gift, a talent for uncovering and confronting the darkest secrets of our world. Emily felt a surge of pride and excitement. I'm honored, Professor. But what exactly do the Enlightened do? We are a network of scholars, researchers, and practitioners who seek to understand and, when necessary, neutralize supernatural threats, Hawthorne explained. We have chapters across the globe, each working to protect humanity from forces that seek to exploit our world. Hawthorne then handed Emily a dossier filled with reports, photographs, and case files. These are some of the cases we've been investigating. We believe that your expertise could be invaluable in helping us solve them. Emily spent the next several hours poring over the dossier. Each case was more fascinating and chilling than the last. There were accounts of haunted mansions, cursed artifacts, and malevolent spirits. One case in particular caught her attention: series of disappearances in a remote village in Eastern Europe, all linked to an ancient relic known as the Orb of Shadows. According to the dossier, the Orb of Shadows was a powerful artifact rumored to have the ability to control darkness and summon malevolent entities. The Enlightened had traced its origins to a long-lost civilization, and they believed that it was currently in the possession of a secretive cult known as the Children of the Abyss. This is our most urgent case, Professor Hawthorne said, noting Emily's interest. The Children of the Abyss are dangerous, and their leader, a man known only as the Keeper, is believed to be using the orb to conduct dark rituals. We need someone with your skills to investigate and, if possible, retrieve the orb. Emily accepted the assignment without hesitation. She knew that this was exactly the kind of challenge she had been seeking. A chance to delve into the unknown and confront a powerful supernatural threat. Her journey took her to the small, isolated village of Brancusi in Romania. The village was shrouded in mist and steeped in an eerie silence, its narrow cobblestone streets lined with old, decrepit buildings. The villagers were wary of outsiders and reluctant to speak of the recent disappearances. But Emily managed to gain their trust with her genuine concern and empathetic demeanor. Through her conversations with the villagers, Emily learned that the Children of the Abyss operated out of an old abandoned monastery on the outskirts of the village. The monastery, once a place of worship and refuge, had long since fallen into ruin and was now said to be cursed. Determined to uncover the truth, Emily set out for the monastery, accompanied by a local guide named Andre. Andre was a young man with a deep knowledge of the village's history and folklore. He had lost several friends to the cult's activities and was eager to assist Emily in her investigation. As they approached the monastery, the air grew colder, and a sense of foreboding settled over them. The building loomed before them, its stone walls covered in ivy and its windows dark and empty. Emily and Andre made their way inside, their footsteps echoing through the silent halls. The interior of the monastery was a maze of crumbling corridors and shadowy chambers. Emily could feel the oppressive energy of the place, the lingering presence of dark rituals and malevolent forces. She and Andre searched the rooms carefully, looking for any clues that might lead them to the Orb of Shadows. In the monastery's library, they found a hidden chamber behind a bookshelf. The chamber was filled with ancient texts, occult symbols, and disturbing artifacts. At the center of the room stood a pedestal, upon which rested the Orb of Shadows. The artifact was a smooth, black sphere that seemed to absorb the light around it, emanating a palpable sense of dread. As Emily approached the orb, she felt a surge of dark energy. The air around her grew thick, and the shadows in the room seemed to come alive. She reached out to touch the orb, but before she could, a voice echoed through the chamber. "Stop!" The voice was cold and commanding. Emily turned to see a tall, hooded figure standing in the doorway. It was the Keeper, the leader of the Children of the Abyss. His eyes glowed with an eerie light, and his presence filled the room with a sense of menace. "The Orb of Shadows is not for the likes of you," the Keeper said, his voice dripping with contempt. "It is the key to our ascension, the source of our power. You cannot hope to take it from us." Emily stood her ground, her heart pounding. "I won't let you use it to harm innocent people," she said, her voice steady. "The enlightened will stop you." The Keeper laughed, a chilling sound that echoed through the chamber. "You are a fool, Emily Hart. The power of the orb is beyond your comprehension. You will fail, just as all who came before you." With a wave of his hand, the Keeper summoned a wave of dark energy that surged towards Emily. She braced herself, but before the energy could reach her, Andre stepped forward, a silver amulet in his hand. The amulet glowed with a bright light, and the dark energy dissipated. The Keeper recoiled, his eyes narrowing with rage. "You will pay for this," he snarled, before disappearing into the shadows. Emily and Andre knew that they had only a short window of time before the Keeper returned with reinforcements. They quickly retrieved the Orb of Shadows and made their way out of the monastery, the artifact safely secured. Back in the village, they were met with a mixture of relief and apprehension. The villagers were grateful for their efforts, but they knew that the threat of the Children of the Abyss was far from over. Emily contacted Professor Hawthorne, who arranged for the Orb of Shadows to be transported to a secure location where it could be studied and kept safe. With the artifact secured and the immediate threat neutralized, Emily took a moment to reflect on her journey. She knew that the battle against dark forces was far from over, but she also knew that she was not alone. The enlightened had given her a sense of purpose and a network of allies who shared her commitment to uncovering the truth and protecting the innocent. As she prepared to leave Brancusi, Emily felt a sense of peace and determination. She knew that there were still many mysteries to uncover and many battles to be fought, but she also knew that she had the strength and support to face whatever challenges lay ahead. For Emily Hart, the adventure was far from over. She was a seeker of truth, a guardian of the past, and a champion of the light. And with the enlightened by her side, she was ready to face the darkness and uncover the secrets that lay hidden in the shadows.
The Forgotten Asylum. In a small, isolated town nestled deep within the forest, there stood an old, abandoned asylum. The locals spoke of it in hushed tones, sharing stories of the eerie happenings that occurred there long ago. No one dared to go near it, especially after dark, but curiosity got the better of a group of college friends one chilly autumn night. Lena, Mark, Sarah, and Jason decided to explore the asylum for a thrill. Armed with flashlights and a sense of adventure, they ventured into the decrepit building. The moment they stepped inside, the temperature seemed to drop, and an unsettling silence enveloped them. The walls were lined with peeling paint, and the air was thick with the smell of mold and decay. As they walked through the darkened hallways, the sound of their footsteps echoed eerily. Suddenly, Lena stopped, pointing to a faded sign on the wall that read, "Ward 13, do not enter." "Let's check it out," Mark suggested, trying to sound brave. Reluctantly, the group agreed and made their way down the narrow corridor leading to Ward 13. The door creaked open with a loud groan, revealing a long, dimly lit room filled with rusty, abandoned medical equipment and broken beds. Why did they lock this ward up? Sarah wondered aloud. As they explored further, Lena found an old, leather-bound journal tucked away in a dusty corner. She opened it, and the first entry read, September 23rd, 1953. Today, we admitted a new patient. She claims to see the spirits of the departed. She screams that they are coming for us all. Chills ran down their spines as Lena continued to read. The journal detailed the harrowing experiences of the asylum staff, who were plagued by strange occurrences and sightings of ghostly apparitions. Patients would disappear without a trace, only to reappear days later, lifeless and cold. Suddenly, a loud bang echoed through the room, startling the friends. They turned to see the door they had entered through was now closed. Jason rushed to open it, but it wouldn't budge. "Guys, we need to get out of here," he said, panic rising in his voice. They frantically searched for another way out, but found themselves trapped. The temperature continued to drop, and an eerie fog began to seep into the room. Whispered voices filled the air, growing louder and more frantic. "Help us. Free us," the voices pleaded. Terrified, the friends huddled together, desperately trying to figure out what to do. Lena flipped through the journal, hoping to find a clue. Her eyes widened as she read the final entry. October 31st, 1954. The spirits have taken over. There is no escape. We are doomed to remain here forever. As the fog thickened, ghostly figures began to materialize, their faces twisted in anguish. The friends screamed, backing away as the apparitions advanced toward them. Just when it seemed all hope was lost, Lena remembered a passage from the journal. "Light the candle of remembrance," she shouted. "It's our only chance." They quickly searched the room and found an old, dusty candle. Mark flicked his lighter, igniting the wick. As the flame flickered to life, the spirits paused, their expressions softening. The fog began to recede, and the temperature slowly returned to normal. The door creaked open, and the friends wasted no time in escaping the haunted ward. They didn't stop running until they were safely outside the asylum, gasping for breath. "We're never coming back here," Sarah declared, and everyone agreed. As they walked away, Lena glanced back at the asylum one last time. In the dim light, she could see the faint outline of a woman standing in the window, watching them with a sad, wistful expression. Lena shivered and turned away, vowing to never speak of that night again. The friends left the town the next day, never to return. But the story of their terrifying night in the forgotten asylum would be whispered among the locals for generations to come, a chilling reminder of the restless spirits that still lingered within its walls.